Hey guys, so I'm back. This past weekend, well, Saturday, but took the trip for the weekend after work on Friday. I took this really insane Bruce deck to the TCG con going down in Tampa. Participated in the Overdress tournament. Sadly, we could not take the whole thing over. I didn't know Graivida was such an epidemic. It's really a virus if you think about it. They're aliens, you know. They look like the aliens from the movie Alien. They probably want to impregnate you with chest bursters. You know, it's a real problem. Like, I support limiting Graivida to one. If you also support limiting Graivida, comment down below. You know, bless up. Hopefully she does get limited to one. That card's insane. But anyways, that's really the only matchup that and the mirror match. The mirror match is pretty like super 50-50. Which I didn't realize. I thought, oh, my deck is just so insane, the mirror won't matter. No, like, Bruce is just, like, still a very insane, overpowered deck. I think Graivida is, like, the only other deck in this format that really checks it, besides, Baro Magnus, but Baro Magnus is just, like, fast boys, like, oh, fast, 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 gotta go fast. But, anyways, getting into the profile, I got 7th place. My record before top 8 playout was, X2. Yeah, X2. I got, which is funny. I lost my final round. It was a very hard fought match against this damn, what's his name? He's one of the judges. He wasn't a judge, but he usually judges Vanguard events in the Florida area. It was a very hard fought match, 50-50. He was also playing Bruce. Like, again, that match was so 50-50. I lost that match, but because I lost against the undefeated first in the second round, it just carried me to 7th place, thankfully. And I told him in the second round, dude, if I get into top, I don't think I'm going to get into top, because I think I didn't think I was going to get into top, but I was like, if I get into top, I'm playing it out for that salty run back. I'm letting you know I want that rematch. And then I get into top, I get into top, and then I play it out. It's a Bruce mirror, and I just get completely, like, destroyed because my deck bricked on me the first game, and then the second game, I literally get mollywopped by the overtrigger, and I'm just like, wow, must be nice. But getting into the profile, before I get into the profile, I'm going to either in the comments or in description the deck code if you just want to take the list and run. I am going to say it though, the deck code is MXB8. So again, if you just want to take the list and run, leave a like on your way out. That's the deck code. But getting into the list, I've heard this actually quite a few times while I was at the tournament, that this is not your normal Bruce list. This is a very strange Bruce list, or let me at least try to explain it. So we're running 4 Pandemonium Tactics, maxing out on your Persona Ride Bruces, and I was playing 2 Marjorie. Marjorie was just basically another enabler, really, for my soul count and just a good attacker. I ran her at 2 just because I didn't want my hand just be clogged of grade 3s. I wanted to be able to play the game on turn 1. I wanted to be able to play the game on turn 2. So that was basically my reasoning for that. I had the space, so I played Marjorie. I tried Brian. I just didn't like Brian, to be honest. I preferred my other choices over the Brian. The reason we're running Pandemonium Tactics is because this is a very soul charge heavy version of the deck. I want a lot of soul because of the way I use the soul. And I really like Pandemonium Tactics over Helldive, just because Pandemonium Tactics kind of gives you follow-up for next turn, where you don't have to draw into cards like Marjorie, that you can just replace attackers, and essentially you still have your restand turn. So it gives you follow-up in the sense that you don't have to worry about getting the 5 soul for your restand, is what I mean. And going on to the 2s, another key card of the deck, along with Pandemonium, your other main soul charger, is for Derek. Derek is really what makes this deck work. Like, Derek is like the coffin shooter of this deck. Without Derek, this deck wouldn't work as smoothly as it does. But these are your 2 main soul enablers that basically give you your turn setup / your follow-up. Derek obviously calling the cards off the top of the deck, very helpful. Running at 4, it just does everything. It retires, it gives you soul, it gives you units that turn into food or turn into other things that become very powerful attackers or boosters. And then we're playing 4 Eden. Now the reason that we're playing 4 Eden is because this is the main, one of the main win conditions of the deck, the main beaters of the deck. Also, it's a very good early game tool. If you're getting rushed down, it's very good to counter rush with Eden or to just clean up your rear guards with Eden. It's also very good in the Bruce matchup along with Derek. What I found myself doing, I probably shouldn't have done it, but I was just experimenting. I wanted to see whether or not how viable it was, how big of a difference it made. It still felt pretty 50-50, but I put them on such low cards and such low soul that I felt comfortable enough doing it. Whereas I was using Derek and I was using Eden in combination to pop their board where they wouldn't get the soul and draw off the grade 2 of the ride line against the Bruce matchup. And I just thought that was a pretty cool interaction that you could do. But you are maxing out at 4 copies. Again, this is a card that you could use in the early game, in the mid to late game. That's the reason why I am playing Eden. The crit ability, again, it's one of your main ways that you're trying to close out the game. Your second way, which is arguably the most fun way that you can use using this card to close out the game, is if your opponent, I killed one of my opponents. Damn, I know this guy. I know this. I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry, but he's called the Baro guy. He was playing Baro Magnus. I actually killed him from 3 with Granary. Granary, I'm playing at 2 just because Granary isn't. It's a very much a late game card, to whereas you want your opponent to be ideally at 4 or 5 damage. Now you're probably asking yourself, what does this card do? I've never seen this card before in my life. Granary, what it does is, its ability is Soul Blast 1, your opponent can't intercept for the rest of the turn, and if you're in Final Rush, you get 5k. This ability is not once per turn, and this is where Pandemonium Tactics and Derek come into combination with each other, to whereas I've Soul Blasted 10 cards and given this card 100,000 power. Swinging with 100,000 power, and that's not the main win condition of the deck. Let me show you real quick. The main win condition of the deck is this. This is what I built the whole deck around. This is why the deck is so soul heavy. These are my main attackers. Eden and Granary is for Quen Lu. The deck was literally called, what was it called? My Waifu Quen Lu? Yeah, My Waifu Quen Lu. That's literally what I called the deck. Quen Lu is what makes this very explosive, like, I guess combo deck, I would call it. Yeah, it's very combo heavy. Combo deck possible, because what Quen Lu does is it makes it that your opponent can only guard with grade 0s on the targeted unit. You make this guy 100k or 100k plus. You make this guy at most 35 or 43 or 45, and you're telling your opponent, I'm swinging with this twice and you can only use grade 0s to guard it. You can't PG this. And this is especially deadly with Eden. If you can set up 2 Edens on boards, most of the time you only have enough Quen Lus to activate 1, but there's times where you can activate 2 Quen Lus, you have 2 Edens, you just basically say, eat face, and then when they restand, you can only guard this of 0s, you can only guard this of 0s, which technically makes guarding very easy for your opponent because they just PG the Vanguard, but then again, they need the right combination of cards in hand to survive. This combo is very dumb against another deck that is considered very good in this climate, Loro. This combo just basically says no to all of Loro's extra shield. Like, you make this guy plus 45 plus 100k sometimes. That's the most that I've gotten him to, plus 100k. Like, I could soul charge or 100 plus 100,000. I could soul blast more, but at that point it's plus 100,000. There's really no point to soul blast anymore. But 10 is the most that I've done. I usually do like 6, 7, or 8, depending. Like I said, this is a very soul blast heavy deck because I soul charge so much because I want to have that guaranteed follow up for my Bruce. I want to have that extra soul to say I could use cards like, well, let me get into the rest of the cards. So 4 PGs, obviously, nothing much to talk about there. But then I was playing 3, what's it called? Protobulb Dragon. Now, another reason that's so good to have extra soul is because it gives you extra options to grab cards from soul, like PGs, like Derek, like Granary, if you soul charge a Granary, because you only run Granary at 2. It's just very good in situations where, you know, you need that extra piece in hand. You need the Pandemonium Tactics. You need the Persona Ride. You need the Derek to set up a follow-up for next turn. And that's just exactly like how I built this deck, to whereas I want to try and Quenlu OTK my opponent. Not necessarily on turn 4, but like sometimes, like I said, you Persona Ride, you activate Pandemonium, that's plus 20k to the front row. You activate 1 Quenlu, you're swinging at least 35, and then your Vanguard's at least 33 with a crit, because again, you soul charge so much, you're going to get that extra crit off of Pandemonium. So he's swinging at least 33 with a crit. Of course, if they have a PG, they're forced to use it on that. And then you're swinging again 35 to 43 with a crit, or even more with Granary. And that's essentially like the win condition of the deck. The win condition of the deck is how many zeros do you have in hand? Because PGs are almost useless. Like, they're not useless because you don't always have the Quenlu, which is it's very deceptive. To whereas in the Loro matchup, you can get away with throwing away PGs, but versus this deck, this version of the deck, you can't necessarily always get away with throwing away PGs, because there was moments where I could Quenlu combo on turn 4, but I chose to hold the Quenlu in hand for next turn for a more guaranteed victory. Or if I have 2 Quenlus, obviously I'm just going to proc 1 on that turn and then save the second one for next turn. But that's essentially the idea of the deck. Again, you don't have to run the Protobulbs, but again, the ability to just toolbox for whatever you're missing or for whatever you want for next turn, like extra shield, perfect guards, it's just too strong, in my opinion, to not run. And it feels very good when you get Protobulbs off of Derek. Getting Protobulbs off of Derek just feels so disgusting. And the reason that you want to run, not like a hefty number of grade 1s also, the reason that I'm running so many grade 1s is because if you go second, going second in Bruce is not a death sentence. Going second in Bruce almost feels unfair because of the turn 1 attack play you could make of swing with 8k, swing 14, and then swing with 8k plus whatever triggers I got to put on that column. And if they don't get a defensive, your opponent's going to, like, even depending on your checks, even if they do get a defensive, your opponent is going to at least 2 to 3 damage. If not, you're eating cards out of their hand on turn 1, which is just very strong to me. And there were so many times where I was going second, I did push my opponent to 3 damage. And let's say like they would kill off a column or they attack one of the rows, I'd still have an 8k. So when I would ride up to grade 2, I would soul charge the 8k, keep the 6k booster, and swing for 16 and put them to 4 damage. It's just an exuding amount of pressure that you normally don't have going first. Now, going first, you do get to combo off first. You do get to do your combo, which is like very strong. To whereas if you did put them to at least like 2 damage, it's just like a very scary situation. At least 2 to 3 damage. It's like a very scary situation where they can still just die. But if you add the Quenlu combo into the mix, if you add Granary into the mix, to whereas, man, I got a lot of soul that, especially if you know it's your last turn, that you don't need to save soul for next turn. If you know for a fact, man, this is it. You literally just dump all your soul on Granary and be like, can you guard this? Or there was times where I could set up 2 Granaries and like I split the soul. I gave this one plus 45k. I gave this one plus 30k. And it's just a very powerful combo, in my opinion. It is kind of piece reliant. Again, the idea is to make this giant giant lane with a crit, this giant number that they can't PG. That's the basic idea of the deck. That's why you're running 4 copies of this. You're not afraid to necessarily use it in the early game. You're not necessarily afraid to use it in the early game, to whereas, you know, you're not afraid to do the rush because you run multiple copies of this card. You really only need to activate it 2 times maximum. You only really need to activate Protobulb like once or twice maximum. Or at least that's the way that I see it, in my opinion. Getting onto the triggers, the trigger lineup is very basic. There's nothing really to talk about. 4 heal triggers. For the Soul Charge crit, this actually does come up to make some very niche numbers because Quenlu gives you 2k, which is very like, I understand that they think giving 3k is too powerful, but like, come on, Bushy, like 2k, that does nothing unless you stack another 2k on it. So sometimes this comes in handy. You call it off the top, it's going to soul anyway, so you might as well just use it. So that's why we're playing them at 4. Again, like I say in all my videos, if you do not have them, don't worry. It is an addition. It is, it's not super necessary for the deck. But it's one of those cards where it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So yeah, 8 critical triggers. I run 3 front triggers. You're running 8 crits just because obviously you want, because this is a multi-attack deck, you want to get your opponent to high damage as quick as possible. As like when we were running down with the turn 1 plays, with the turn 2 plays, you want your opponent at high damage as quick as possible, to whereas even if you did have to sacrifice some pieces, and all you can get is Persona Ride, or all you can get is a Pandemonium to give 10k to your front row, that sometimes just becomes just enough because you pressured them so early in the game. And then the Dark Stakes Overtrigger is just too good in this deck. Like, getting this off early feels so disgusting in this deck because it adds on to the pressure. Even if you went first, it especially adds on to the pressure that you normally don't have in this type of deck in the early game, where you'd have to commit cards to rush. We're running the fronts over the draws because there's so many decks in this format that hit really big numbers that you just want to, like I said, you really need the shield, in my opinion. You can't run draws because you soul charge, I think, like, what, like 7 to 8 to even more cards a turn, like 12. I could like soul charge like 12 cards in one turn. So your deck velocity is very fast. Like, there were so many times where I win the game that I was like so close to deck out, but like I said, if you know that's your last turn, you don't really care. Like, you're gonna get that deck as low as possible. Like, you're gonna get as many soul as possible just to proc, you know, your skills, to proc your granary. In these certain situations that I was talking about, or because you need 7 or more soul for to even activate Quenlu. That's the main reason why I'm using why I built this deck the way it is. I'm using Pandemonium or over Helldive Blaze, which I've thought about using it after the tournament because, like, damn, like, I go through the deck so fast. There's like so many times like I soul charged a lot of triggers, I soul charged a lot of pieces that I would like to see, but then again, like, Helldive Blaze just doesn't give you the, you know, the instant access to your soul. Like, I got you, boo. This is all you need to get your 5 attacks off, and that's why I like Pandemonium over Helldive Blaze. Like I said, we got 7th place. What were the matchups? The matchups were round 1. What was round 1? Drawing a blank. Round 2, I know for a fact it was Graivida. It was versing the undefeated. Actually, a guy that goes to locals. That I was surprised that him and his friend group actually came, and it was super cool too, because they both topped, and I thought that was like really amazing. Like, you know, hey, show up, you know, represent the local scene of our area. But he was playing Graivida. He got that. Like, he literally 2-0'd clapped my cheeks. Like, that deck is just, the fact that it can just rush, and then it just replenishes its hand when it goes into Graivida. It just feels so strong. Like it gets the Orphis rush, but like it gets the cards back that it used to rush. It's just like so crazy in my opinion, at least. But well, obviously, you know, I blame Solemn Vanguard for the deck being so popular. Like, shame on you, man. What you doing? You know what you did when you did that deck profile. I don't even know why I'm trying to do a report. I don't remember. From the drive back, next day was a whole different ass day. It was a vacation, went to the aquarium. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe down below and tell me what you think of the deck. If you want to see it in action, you know, thoughts. See ya.